You know that feeling when you make a choice and immediately wonder why you chose what you chose. You scroll through those images of houses or cars or doors, and something in you gravitates toward one specific option, and then you read the description, and it feels like someone just read your diary, like they know exactly what is going on inside your head. You think, how did they know? How could a simple choice reveal so much about me? And here is what really gets you. You start questioning every choice you have ever made. Was that really me choosing, or is there something deeper, something hidden, something unconscious pulling the strings? You look back at your relationships, your career moves, the way you reacted in that argument last week, and you wonder, who is really in control here? Am I choosing my life, or is my life choosing me? If you have ever felt like you are living on autopilot, like there is a version of you making decisions behind the scenes that you never fully understand, then what I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about yourself and your choices. There is something deeply unsettling about the moment you realize you do not fully know yourself. You go through your days making hundreds of decisions, from what to eat for breakfast to how to respond to that difficult email, and you assume you understand why you do what you do. You have reasons, explanations, stories you tell yourself about who you are. But then, something happens. You choose something unexpected. You react in a way that surprises even you. And suddenly that solid sense of self you have been building your entire life starts to feel like a house built on sand. The foundation shifts, and you are left wondering, who am I really? What else am I hiding from myself? These personality tests and psychological quizzes tap into something profound. They promise to reveal what you cannot see on your own, to shine a light into the dark corners of your psyche where your true self supposedly lives. The common interpretation is that these choices reveal your unconscious desires, your repressed wishes, your hidden personality traits that you keep locked away. Freud would tell you there is a part of you that operates beneath awareness, a reservoir of drives and memories and conflicts that shape everything you do without you even knowing it. And that sounds convincing, does it not? It explains why you keep choosing the wrong partners, why you sabotage yourself right before success, why you feel one way but act another way. The solution most people reach for is simple. If I can just understand my unconscious, if I can just bring these hidden parts into the light, then I can finally take control of my life. So they read about their personality type, they analyze their dreams, they try to decode every choice as if it were a message from their inner self. And yet, despite all this analysis, despite all this understanding, nothing really changes. They still make the same choices. They still feel that strange disconnect between who they think they are and how they actually behave. Because here is what nobody tells you. The problem is not that you do not understand your unconscious. The problem is that you have been looking in the wrong place entirely. And before I continue, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest, even if it is just with yourself. Have you ever felt this? Have you ever made a choice and then spent hours, maybe days, trying to figure out why you chose what you chose? Because I know that when you are going through something like this, you feel completely alone, like you are the only person on earth who does not understand their own mind. You look around and everyone else seems so sure of themselves, so clear about who they are and what they want, and you think, what is wrong with me? Why can I not just know myself? But the truth is, you are not alone. There are thousands of people watching this video right now who feel exactly the same way you do. And you know what helps more than any theory or explanation? It is realizing that other people understand, that people experience this too. So go down to the comments and write just this, write, I question my choices too. You do not need to give details if you do not want to. You do not need to tell your whole story. Just that sentence is enough. Because when you write that, you are not just venting, you are telling another person who will read your comment. You are also not alone. And that might be exactly what someone needed to hear today. What if I told you that what you call your unconscious is not some hidden realm inside you waiting to be discovered, but rather something that was constructed, something that was built into you by the world you live in? This is where we need to move beyond Freud and toward a different kind of understanding, one that Michel Foucault spent his life developing. Foucault would look at these personality tests and ask a completely different question. Not what do they reveal about you, but what do they do to you? How do they shape the way you understand yourself? Because every time you take one of these tests, every time you read that you are an introvert or a creative type or someone with abandonment issues, you are not discovering a pre-existing truth. You are participating in what Foucault called technologies of the self. You are learning a specific way to see yourself, to categorize yourself, to govern yourself. Think about it. 100 years ago, nobody worried about whether they were an INFJ or an Enneagram 4. Those categories did not exist. Does that mean people back then did not have personalities? Of course not. It means they understood themselves through different frameworks, different languages, different practices. And here is what is crucial. These frameworks are not neutral. They carry power. They create norms. They tell you what counts as healthy or unhealthy, normal or abnormal, successful or failed. When you choose a house in one of these tests and it tells you what your choice means, it is not revealing your unconscious. It is teaching you how to be a certain kind of subject in this world. So, what is really happening when you make these choices? You are not accessing some deep inner truth. You are performing a learned way of understanding yourself. From the moment you were born, you have been surrounded by discourses about psychology, personality, the self. You have watched movies where characters go to therapy and discover their true selves. You have read articles about attachment styles and love languages. You have absorbed thousands of messages about what it means to be a person, what it means to have an inner life. And all of this has shaped the way you interpret your own experiences. This is what Foucault meant when he talked about subjectivation. You are not born with a fixed self that you spend your life discovering. You become a self through practices, through the ways you are taught to observe yourself, judge yourself, work on yourself. When you choose that modern minimalist house instead of the cozy cottage, you are not revealing that you value independence over connection. You are enacting a story about yourself that you have learned to tell, a story that fits with certain discourses about what it means to be modern, successful, evolved. And here is where it gets really interesting. These stories feel so personal, so intimate, so uniquely yours, but they are actually shared scripts, collective narratives that circulate through your culture. The idea that you have a true self that can be discovered through introspection, that is not a universal human truth. That is a specific historical invention, one that serves specific purposes. It makes you responsible for your own happiness, your own success, your own psychological health. It turns your attention inward when maybe it should be looking outward at the structures and systems that shape your life. It keeps you endlessly working on yourself instead of questioning why the world is organized the way it is. This is not to say that self-reflection is bad or that understanding yourself is pointless. But we need to be clear about what we are actually doing when we engage in these practices. We are not excavating a hidden truth. We are creating a self, performing a self according to the rules and norms available to us. Foucault studied ancient Greek and Roman practices of self-care, what they called epimeleia hioutou, the care of the self. And what he found was fascinating. These ancient practices were not about discovering who you really are. They were about actively shaping yourself, sculpting yourself like an artist works on a piece of art. They understood that the self is not something you find, but something you make. And they made themselves through specific practices, daily exercises, relationships with mentors, ways of examining their thoughts and actions, not to uncover hidden truths, but to strengthen certain capacities, to cultivate certain virtues, to become capable of living freely. This is so different from our modern obsession with finding ourselves, with being authentic to our true nature. The ancients would have found that idea strange. They would ask, which self, the self you are now or the self you want to become? And they would insist that you have the power, through practice, through discipline, through care, to become different than you are, not by discovering what was always there, but by creating what was never there before. When you understand this, everything changes. Those personality tests stop being revelations and start being invitations. Invitations to try on different ways of being, different stories about who you might become. Your choices stop being clues to decode and start being experiments to conduct. You realize that you are not trapped by your unconscious drives or your personality type or your attachment style. You are participating in an ongoing process of self-creation, and you can participate more consciously, more intentionally, more freely. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was someone who took every personality test she could find, read every psychology book, went to therapy for years. She could tell you all about her childhood wounds, her defense mechanisms, her patterns. She knew herself inside and out, or so she thought. But despite all this knowledge, she kept ending up in the same situations, the same type of unfulfilling relationships, the same career frustrations, the same sense that she was not living the life she wanted. One day, sitting in yet another therapy session, going over the same patterns for the 100th time, something shifted in her. She realized that all this analysis, all this understanding, had become its own trap. She had been so focused on understanding why she was the way she was that she had stopped imagining she could be any different. She had turned her personality into a prison, a fixed thing she had to live within. So she tried something radical. She stopped asking why and started asking what if. What if I'm not defined by my past? What if I could respond to this situation in a completely new way? What if I practiced being someone different? Until it became natural. She started small. In conversations where she would normally withdraw, she practiced engaging. In moments where she would normally seek reassurance, she practiced trusting herself. And slowly, not through understanding but through practice, through actually doing things differently, she became different, not because she discovered her true self, but because she created a new self through new practices, new relationships, new ways of being in the world. Now, I am not going to give you a list of steps to follow or exercises to complete. That would miss the entire point. What I can tell you is this. Start noticing the stories you tell about yourself. When you say I am just an anxious person, or I have always been this way, or that is just how I am, pause. Ask yourself, where did I learn this story? Who benefits from me believing this about myself? What would become possible if I told a different story? And then, more importantly, start practicing being different, not by trying to change who you are inside, but by changing what you do. If you want to be more confident, practice doing things a confident person would do, even if you feel terrified. If you want to be more creative, practice creating things, even if they are terrible at first. The self is not something you have, it is something you do. It is a performance that becomes real through repetition. And here is the beautiful, terrifying truth. You have been performing a certain version of yourself for so long that it feels natural, inevitable, true. But it is not. It is just one possibility among many. You can choose to perform differently. You can practice new ways of being until they become as natural as the old ways. This does not mean you will not face resistance. You will. Your habits will pull you back. Other people will expect you to be who you have always been. Structures and systems will push you towards certain ways of being. But knowing this, seeing how you have been shaped, is the first step toward shaping yourself differently. And this work, this practice of freedom, as Foucault called it, is never finished. There is no final self to discover, no ultimate version of you waiting to emerge. There is only the ongoing work of making yourself day by day, choice by choice, practice by practice. So when you take one of those personality tests, when you choose a house, or a door or a color, you can see it differently now. You are not revealing a hidden truth. You are participating in a specific practice of self-understanding that our culture offers. And you can take what is useful from it without being trapped by it. You can say, interesting, this is one way to think about myself, one story I could tell. And then you can ask, what other stories are possible? What other ways of being are available to me? Because the real question is not, what does my choice reveal about who I am, but who do I want to become, and what practices will help me get there? This shifts everything. It moves you from being a detective of your own psyche to being an artist of your own existence, from trying to understand yourself to actively creating yourself, from being determined by your past to being opened toward your future. And that is not just more accurate than the unconscious model, it is more free. It puts the power back in your hands. Not the power to finally understand yourself once and for all, but the power to never stop becoming, never stop experimenting, never stop creating new possibilities for who you might be. This brings us back to where we started, to that strange feeling of not fully knowing yourself. But now you can see it differently. That feeling is not a problem to solve or a mystery to decode. It is a space of possibility. It is the gap between who you have been and who you might become. And instead of trying to close that gap, by finding your true self, you can live in it, work with it. Use it as the space where transformation happens. You are not a puzzle with missing pieces. You are not a code waiting to be cracked. You are an ongoing project, a work in progress, a becoming rather than a being. And every choice you make is not a clue to who you really are, but an opportunity to practice being someone new, someone more free, someone more fully alive. The houses you choose, the colors you prefer, the way you respond in that difficult moment, none of it is predetermined. None of it is fixed. All of it is practice. All of it is possibility. And when you see it that way, when you stop trying to find yourself and start trying to make yourself, everything opens up. You stop being a prisoner of your personality and start being an artist of your existence. And that is not just a different way to understand yourself. That is a different way to live. If you made it this far in this video, I know you are not just looking for information. You are looking for a real transformation, a different way of existing in the world. And I want to tell you something. You do not have to go through this alone. This channel exists exactly for people like you, people who are tired of superficial answers, who want to go deeper, who have the courage to question everything they learned about themselves. Every week I bring reflections like this, exploring the deepest corners of human experience through philosophy and spirituality. If you want to continue this journey of self-knowledge, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Not because I need numbers, but because you deserve to have a space where you can think differently, feel differently, be differently. And if this video touched something true inside you, leave a like so more people who need to hear this can find this content. You are not alone in this search.